This- Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Midwest Mindset with your host, Paul Tyson. Today, I'm lucky to have a good friend of mine, a fellow neighbor, and one of my first clients, Tim Herron, on to the podcast. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tim, I wanted to have you on here, and you've been a friend and like I said, a neighbor, but also somebody that we worked together kind of early on from the COVID. Why don't, if you would, just give me the listener a little bit of background on who you are, what you did, and then kind of what you were going through, when we first started working together.
Sure. So I co-manage an engineering and project management consulting firm for my day job. For my real job, I'm a father of two pretty outstanding individuals, husband to a great spouse and partner, Marcia, and a pretty faithful, dedicated servant to the community and to my faith.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that your real job is being the father and the spouse to your family. I think that's pretty cool. It says a lot about you.
Well, I think it's easier to get to later in life. Earlier in life, it's pretty easy to get those priorities mixed up.
So
But later,
yeah. Tell me more about that. I'm interested in that.
well, I don't know that there is more about it other than, the longer you're sort of around, the more experiences you have, and the more you realize, work things can change in a heartbeat, and you could be gone, and work doesn't love you back.
Right.
And if they stopped paying you, you'd probably stop coming in. So I think it's just with maturity. Younger, you chase things and you think work is my priority. And I think you just, over time, you realize, no, my priorities are something different. Work is a very important aspect. I need to show up and do the best job I can.
Yep.
But it isn't necessarily who I am. And as guys, that's pretty difficult because we sort of define ourselves. Maybe that sounds sexist, but it seems like more so guys kind of define themselves based on what they do for a living versus who they are.
Right. Well, I thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I caught on that, and I think I'm pretty close to that same position, is that when we're young, it's quantity. It's quantity. Like I want to get that job. I want to move up the ladder. I want to, what's next, onward and upward. And now, at the time point, it's quality, right? The quality of that relationship. Work is exactly what it is. It's a career. It's a necessity. It's something that you do to provide the lifestyle that you want for truly the people that you love the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So I love that. So thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about when you and I first met. I know we were right in the middle of, I think it was the heart of COVID. I had just started this business and you came to me and we started working together. Can you tell me a little bit about what you were going through?
Yeah, I kind of went back through my notes, and you had like a pre-assessment form to fill out. And I think we started in about January 2021.
Yep.
I think we started some trial runs in December of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been right at the height of the pandemic. You and I knew each other first through coaching at the warehouse.
Yep.
You're always like the most popular trainer. Everybody is like, "Oh, great, Paul's here today." And
Just the loudest.
and so yeah, and so through those connections, I think you said, "Hey, I'm going to do some coaching business," and then when that came out, like December 2020, we were 9 months into the pandemic that was going to last 2 weeks, if you remember. Hey,
Right.
just flatten the curve, 2 weeks.
Right.
And so we were 9 months in, and and there was a lot of unknown and a lot of uneasiness. And it was just pretty clear to me, like, wow, I've got some challenges that I've never faced before. I don't even know like how to lead during this time of great uncertainty. And it's pretty clear I need some help. I need some outside thoughts and ideas and brainstorming, and like, who's my counsel? who do I go to?
Yeah.
The Tom Hanks thing, can you complain down? I complain up.
Oh,
And so like, who do I complain to, or who do I get coaching from? So it really came at a good time. And I think we did it for most of 2021, right? Through like
yeah.
November.
Yeah. Yeah. We did. It was, uh, I just, to pause a little bit, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for entrusting me and kind of working through that journey, at a very, very early, part of this career that have kind of taken off a little bit. But yeah, it was almost a full year, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and so it was a good back and forth on our dialogue on what does good look like, how do we show up a little differently, you know what I mean, asking questions, being curious. And that dialogue was yeah, it was cool. That was fun. What how has that changed? How do you think that's, your leadership style has changed a little bit? I mean, I know you've been
Mm.
leading teams for quite a long time, but after that interaction, after our work together, how do you think that's changed or pivoted in any way?
Yeah, if I kind of think back, the sort of key highlights of the things we talked about, the one thing, and I think the diagram behind you, the growth mindset, I think that was really, really powerful to think about. In each of us, we have like two mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. We might have a natural inclination to one or the other, but both are present. And if we live in a fixed mindset, we've sort of accomplished all that we can do, and that's it. And then it's just a declining, scenario from there. Versus a growth mindset sees challenges not as, something to fret over, but something to, like a puzzle. Hey, this is an opportunity to solve something, to figure out something, to learn something new. And so I think really focusing on that growth mindset and looking at the pandemic and the change in what we have to do, not as a threat, but really as an opportunity to kind of think about, okay, how can we meet this challenge? What are the issues? What can we learn? How do we grow? We didn't get to choose the pandemic being thrust on us, but we did get to choose how we respond. And
Right.
so I think that was really a key aspect. And then there were some other things that were sprinkled in along the way. One is, how are you showing up each day? And how is that scenario thing, the way you're responding, how is that serving you? And so that was a good way for me to think about, gosh, is this transaction happened, or this discussion happened, or this meeting, or whatever? How is that serving me relative to what I believe we could accomplish in this scenario? So I think that was really helpful. Then there were a couple other things that sort of stood out. There was a book, I forget the name of the author, but it was like, I Hear You. And it was
Yeah.
really a way to sort of validate where somebody else is coming from, make sure they're heard, because, until that connection happens, they're not really open for feedback.
Right.
And so I think that was really helpful. And then the one I love and kind of still use is, the Chris Voss late night FM DJ voice.
Yeah, for sure.
When things are kind of getting to your, point of, no, we won't do that.
Right. And you've mastered that. That's one thing that you're really good on. So what we're talking about is Never Split the Difference, the book of Chris Voss, who's a FBI interrogator, talked about how to communicate with others, and that late FM DJ voice, on how to it does so many different things for us too, right? It takes us from that sympathetic, that fight or flight scenario, to a parasympathetic, to the point where, and then our voice articulates in a way that, this doesn't serve me. How does this, when you're talking into like a big microphone like this or something, the difference. So yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I sometimes forget about some of that. Like the I Hear You book is something that I get the opportunity to go back and read, because I think there's so many good tools in that book on how to validate somebody, whether that's a coworker, whether that's a coworker, a family member, a friend, but but not necessarily having to agree with them. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that for sure. Well, I definitely appreciate all that feedback. What do you think that I could have done better, or where was the opportunity where we could have gone a different direction, or anything that your thoughts on that? I'm putting you on the spot here for sure. I know.
Yeah. I mean, there were things along the way. I think that was kind of new for you. It was definitely new for me. So I think we just kind of calibrated like each session. Hey, how is this going so far? What things do we adjust or change or move forward?
Hmm.
I think that intake form was pretty good. Um, I know we kind of reviewed the intake form near the one of our last sessions and said, hey, how are we doing to that? So maybe some more integral touch base on that intake form. Hey, we're 4 weeks into it. Let's take 10 minutes to kind of review a couple of these key items. How are we doing? You know,
Yeah.
but I think really just having somebody to kind of brainstorm a different perspective, a different industry, a different, challenge, set of challenges, I think was really helpful during, pretty, uh, I mean, I hate to use that term because it was so overused, but it was definitely unprecedented.
Right.
Nobody had been through it. There
Nobody.
wasn't a script or a plan or this
Right.
is what you do. So, it's kind of in hindsight, it's going to sound really strange to say, but I'm kind of glad we went through it. Um, but it was difficult. It
Oh
was
gosh.
very difficult.
For sure. Some difficult days and some difficult conversations for sure. Well, I appreciate that feedback. That intake form has been something that I got from my mentor, Judy Zimmer, who's been a huge influence on me, and kind of the process of and the structure for this mindset business and this performance business. But so I love that as a tool. So that's good feedback that I should go, kind of maybe even refer back to that. But I like what you said, because I think that's something that I'm still doing, right? Each person is a little different, right? And how we calibrate throughout that process has been where I felt like that's where the gold is, right?
Sure.
Because one piece kind of leads into my next question is, one of the things we did too is I try to focus on, I show up as the coach. And so whatever we want to talk about that day is truly you as the client's opportunity to we go left or we go right, you know what I mean? And so, like, how did you feel about, like, there's certain times we talk business, some certain times we talk personal. How did you like that mix?
Yeah, I really liked it. Because the reality is everybody you meet, sometimes it's business and sometimes it's personal, and sometimes they're worried about both or thinking about both. So, um, yeah, I think the mix worked out really well. And from a coaching perspective, it wasn't so much like an accountability partner, because I feel like I got a lot of accountability partners. I got bankers and I've got partners and I've got other shareholders and employees and friends and a spouse and family and all that, so I feel like I've got plenty of accountability, not to mention my own holding myself accountable, but was more so coaching, well, you can do what you want. Here's some things to consider.
Mhm.
And so it was, I think that was really, really beneficial for me.
Right. That's very helpful. And once again, like I said, I appreciate all this feedback. This is good for me as I'm writing down notes. One of my favorite parts, I don't know if you're all right with me sharing this, but one of my favorite stories was one of the times when we were talking about the guy who cuts you off on the way to work. When we were talking about that, how to kind of reframe that mind. Do you remember that story at all?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you want to share it, or how what some of the things we talked about?
Well, I think, um, for me personally, I when I kind of have something in mind that I want to do, I can kind of get really laser sharp focused on that, whether that's a specific goal or project or task. or it's driving to work. Hey, I want to get to work.
I'm going to work.
And, when things come in your way, it's reframing it from, this is happening to you versus, hey, you're kind of participating in this. And there were a couple of little tricks and things that we talked about, that kind of put some humor into that, and really kind of just changed the whole mindset of, you such and such cut me off, to, oh, you must really need to go to the bathroom.
Totally.
And so, it was just, again, I think the mindset thing, it's really, you cannot control the things that happen to you. You can 100% control your response.
Yep.
And so it was really focusing on not controlling the things that are happening, but to control the response, or to influence the response.
Right. Right. Wow. That's awesome. That was really well said. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And then just my last follow-up, how are things going now? Since COVID, we've worked together. How are things? I mean, you remembered really well a lot of the things that we talked about. How are things going for you now?
Yeah, I think they're going well. I mean, there are still ups and downs. There are still things happening to us that, we would choose to not have happen. But I think it's more the empowerment and recognition of, hey, listen, a bunch of things are going to happen. How do we respond?
Yeah.
How do we show up? And then how does that serve us when we're doing it? And so those are things that are still kind of daily challenges. And
Right.
sometimes I meet them successfully, and sometimes, I'm not quite there yet.
Right.
And so, I just, I feel like that's the mechanism to kind of help me work through that, and to continue to face it. And there continues to be, for me personally and professionally, things that, happen that, gosh, if I got to choose, I'd probably choose not to have that happen. But you don't get to choose, but you do
Right.
get to choose the response. So I really think that's probably the biggest thing that carries through and helps me in good times and in challenges.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, once again, this is real short because I know you do have other things you got to run to, but man, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your piece of this. I know we always talk about, these are, private coaching sessions one-on-one, but you're able to open this up and kind of share your story here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you as a friend, as a neighbor. One of my favorite things to do is when I'm driving by going home, and if Tim's outside, I'm like, I might be able to stop by and have a beer if he's out there sitting outside on his lawn.
Yeah, stop by anytime. We have driveway podcasts. We just don't publish them,
We just don't publish them,
because
right?
I don't think anybody would really be interested.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, I'm going to stop this, but I'll chat with you in just a second here.
Sounds good, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Tim.